Hi there, this is Bill Burrud saying welcome to adventure. True adventure filmed as it happens throughout our fascinating world. Have you ever wondered what it's like to ride the nose cone of a rocket going nearly 18,000 miles an hour? It isn't science fiction anymore. It's happened. It's been done. Man's crossed the threshold of space. From here on out, the sky's the limit. Just 58 years after the Wright brothers first got off the ground at Kitty Hawk, man in space became a reality. Next stop, the moon, Venus, Mars, the outer planets, and eventually, who knows? Because this is the age of space. Wherever man can go, he will. It's amazing, isn't it? How the wild dreams of yesterday become today's confident predictions and tomorrow's commonplaces. This is a true adventure that hasn't all happened yet, but it will. We're going on a trip to the planet Mars. Then later in the program, we'll have a chance to talk to an authority on future space travel. First, however, part fact and part prophecy. Our true adventure in outer space. The countdown is on. We'll blast off on our journey to Mars. Time, the not-too-distant future. Destination, outer space, the planet Mars. This lies in the future. But the trip to Mars began in the not-too-distant past. The exploration of space began with a program to create weapons of war. Spurred on by international tensions, American science and industry combined to rush through an emergency schedule of invention, of design, and construction no one ever dreamed of before. Neither Mars nor the moon is on the minds of the men working here. Their job is an intermediate range ballistic missile. Their schedule is so tight, the demands of national security so urgent, that there's no time for mistakes. They have to design and manufacture right the first time. Testing and retesting, checking and rechecking, cramming what would normally be several years of design and development into a matter of months. The missile has a name that's now part of history. It's called the Thor. There's a good reason for this hurry-up program. Soviet Russia had developed the hydrogen bomb. America's intercontinental ballistic missile is a long way from completion. We need the Thor as an immediate deterrent. A missile that can drop an atomic warhead with pinpoint accuracy on a target 1,500 miles away. And it has to be more than just a good missile. Wind and rain machines blast it with almost hurricane force to make sure it can retaliate under any conditions. January 1957, just 13 months after the contract for the Thor was signed, it's time for the first launch. What went wrong? The liquid oxygen tank ruptured. But even so, the attempt isn't a total loss. Enough recorded data is obtained to prove the basic missile concept is valid. So we try again. There's not a moment's relaxation. Other Thors are made ready for launching. If one fails, another takes its place. And the intricate launch procedures begin again, almost impossibly demanding work going on at an unrelenting pace. A countdown is in progress. A successful blast-off. And after the first, others. until the successes begin to outnumber the so-called failures. Now the Thor begins to demonstrate its talents, delivering a warhead 1,500 miles downrange and right on target. Thor is now operational. For maximum effect on the international scene, Thor launch sites are set up in the United Kingdom. Here they are a front line of defense against aggression. The first task of the men who first dreamed up the Thor has been accomplished. We now have a major deterrent force to counterbalance the still growing power of the Soviet Union. But whether in England or the United States, Thor is more than just a highly efficient weapon system. The men who work with Thor are in fact on the edge of a dream. Less than 60 years after the Wright brothers' first successful flight at Kitty Hawk, they're almost ready for the long step into space. Almost ready. But there's still a tremendous amount of work to do. After all, Thor is still primarily a military weapon, and in spite of its rapid success, we still have no long-range intercontinental missile. But plans are afoot to put Thor to use in a spectacular scientific breakthrough. Spring 1958. The Thor-Able combination is born. Thor is the first stage or booster, and Aerojet General's liquid-fueled Able is the second stage. The combination is used to carry an experimental nose cone 5,000 miles downrange. Thor-Able reaches ICBM speed and range and delivers its payload with almost unbelievable accuracy. But the successful testing and recovery of the nose cone is only the beginning of Thor-Able's career. By now, Russia has startled the world with her Sputniks. The United States has already entered the race space by orbiting the first of the Explorer satellites. Now, it's the Thor-Able's turn. The addition of a third stage orbits the first Pioneer satellite, and then the Explorer 6, which sends back electronic pictures from 17,000 miles out. Then comes the Discoverer program. Again, Thor-Able is fitted with a third stage, and a whole series of satellites go into orbit, each one contributing to the nation's scientific and defense programs. More importantly, in the long run, each firing, each successful Earth satellite brings the day closer when man himself will step across the last great frontier. Project Mercury, America's plan to put man into space, is already underway. This is a prelude. As long as there have been men on Earth, they've been responding to the lure of the unknown. And out there, beyond the atmosphere, lies the greatest unknown. That unimaginable expanse of outer space stretching between the Earth and her sister planets, between our sun and the distant stars. On the surface of the Earth, the steady, now almost prosaic seeming preparations continue. In the blockhouses at Canaveral and Vandenberg, as well as in comparable facilities behind the Iron Curtain, highly skilled men, practical men, go about the task of turning yesterday's impractical dream into tomorrow's reality. These matter-of-fact preparations are part of the careful routines being developed for the greatest adventure that man has ever undertaken. Meanwhile, at overseas bases and within our borders, American missiles stand ready to do the job they were first intended for. Their very presence in the arsenal of the free world goes a long way toward guaranteeing us against sudden attack, and the scientific knowledge gained in the development of these weapon systems lies at the heart of our future in the universe, because now the sky is the limit. National defense and American plans for the conquest of space proceed hand in hand. The flight test program for our fastest moving ballistic missile goes into high gear. The silo that will contain a Minuteman missile is opened. The missile itself is raised above the silo and slowly lowered into position. This flight is planned to test the guidance and control systems. The missile glides into its silo. And here's the launching. The first stage is going well. The first stage burns out and falls back. The second stage is on its way to the target area. A highly successful flight. A new entry into the missile race, the Atlas, named for the mythological being who supported the heavens and the stars on his shoulders. The Atlas is planned to travel at 15 times the speed of sound, with a range of 5,500 miles. Its blunt nose cone can carry a nuclear warhead 6 feet in diameter. Years of preparation have led up to this moment. What we're about to see isn't just another launch. This is a big one. A tremendous amount of work and hope and faith hang in the balance of the next few moments. Now, final countdown. going off course. A split-second decision by the range safety officer. A failure is only the signal for a new beginning. And soon the work and the faith that have gone into the Atlas are justified. By now, the Atlas has been tested successfully, and Cape Canaveral personnel are preparing for a series of dramatic nose cone recovery tests. Air and sea recovery teams are standing by. If the missile succeeds in putting its payload into orbit, these teams will attempt to recover it after it re-enters the atmosphere. But no matter how many successful launchings have been made, the moments before blastoff are always filled with tension. The range safety officer keeps a careful watch for any sign of trouble. This time, everything is go. The bird is flying well, already miles above the Earth. All indications are that a successful orbit will be achieved. The Atlas is out of visual contact now. It's up to the radar equipment to keep track of it. A destroyer hurries toward the recovery area. Smoke and dye markers locate the spot where the nose cone is landed, but it may sink before the ship gets there. That's what the paradivers have to prevent. Wearing scuba gear as well as parachutes, these men are to jump into the ocean and secure the nose cone to inflated rafts to keep it afloat. Time to go. Destroyer is approaching. The nose cone is secured, and all that remains is for the paradivers to await the arrival of the ship to complete the pickup. But a successful air recovery has yet to be made. This catch apparatus will attempt the job on another Atlas nose cone that has just completed an orbit. There it goes. At the next pass, they've got it. The nose cone and its parachute are drawn slowly toward the catch plane. Even now, the tension doesn't lessen. The job hasn't been done. The catch isn't complete until the cone is safely aboard. Finally, in it goes. Another milestone, another step toward greater national security through scientific achievement. But the missile and space program doesn't end there, because we're on our way. And the same urge that sent men to sea in flimsy boats at the dawn of civilization, to explore, to extend his world, that drove him across the oceans and continents and up to the highest mountains, is just as surely sending him to the distant reaches of space. We're on our way there now. The journey to Mars has begun. We took a step when John Glenn, the first American to orbit our Earth, made his historic ride into space. We took a step when the first man learned to walk. Now, our destination is the stars and true adventure. Well, as you can see, what Buck Rogers achieved in the comic strips, man is now actually achieving in reality. I'd like to have you meet our special guest. He is Mr. Ted Smith. He is the chief engineer of space systems for the Douglas Aircraft Company. Ted, we're grateful to have you with us, and I think the first question to ask you is, what is Douglas doing now to help interplanetary travel?
Well, Bill, Douglas is working at a very high rate on all sorts of studies involving lunar and interplanetary travel. We have developed a line of spaceships which we call the RITAs, the Reusable Interplanetary Transport Approach. It's our feeling that before space travel can become a reality, we must develop single-stage vehicles that can be used over and over, much as a commercial airplane, to allow us to amortize the initial development costs. Until we get to this point, I don't think we'll ever really have space travel in the ordinary sense of the word.
Now, when we reach this point, will it be possible for, let's say, people watching us right out there, or their children, or their children's children, to travel into space?
There's no question about it. Sooner or later, we're all going to get into space. I think within 10 years, many people will be going as far as the moon, and a few people as far as Mars and Venus, and from there on, who knows?
And of course, I think we'll point out again that your point being that the Douglas system would bring the spaceship back to Earth, and then you'd refuel it, just
right,
like a commercial air transport.
We feel that you must have nuclear power to achieve this kind of a reusability that will put you on the same par as the commercial airlines today. And that the way to get this is to get the highly efficient nuclear engines where you can get enough impulsive speed to take you clear to the planets and back again without the great multiple staging that the present chemical systems use.
It'd be kind of embarrassing to get them out there and not be able to bring them back.
Oh, we'll have gas stations up there before you know it.
I see. Ted, what about your personal feeling on whether there is life in outer space in one of the many galaxies? Do you suppose there are other planets that are perhaps doing the same thing we're doing at a certain level?
Well, Bill, you really asked the wrong guy. I'm an engineer and not a scientist. I read the magazines, too, and from what I hear, there are billions of of places in space that have conditions just like our Earth, so I assume there probably are such places.
Well, let's hope that we get to them before they get to us. Ted Smith of Douglas, thank you for being on our program, and of course I want to thank you for sharing this true adventure with us. Until we meet once again, this is Bill Burrud saying, may all your adventures be happy ones.